at this junction of, do I quit the OlFactory Shop and wrap it up and say that was fun? Or do I leave my job and really go head on in the OlFactory Shop? It just kind of hit a point in my work life where it was scarier for me to stay in my job than it was to jump all into entrepreneurship. So it really wasn't even a choice that I felt like I had to make. It was kind of decided for me. My gut told me, like, you need to do this. You'll be so unhappy if you don't do it. So I jumped in full time in 2018 and haven't looked back, and there's no plan B.
Welcome to episode number 17 of the Rose Bros podcast, where the idea is to share the insights from other entrepreneurs, athletes, and cool people in general. All the while enjoying some Rose Bros coffee. This episode we are joined by Micki Chau, founder of the OlFactory Shop, a natural fragrance company that also creates essential oils, sprays, perfumes, skincare products, diffusers, candles, and cool gift sets. The OlFactory Shop was born out of Micki's love of plant powers and desire to rid synthetic fragrance from your home and your body. As someone who has always had synthetic fragrance sensitivities, Micki's goal is to create 100% all-natural products that fit into a healthy and natural life. Also, while on her honeymoon to Cambodia in September 2018, Micki learned of Cambodia's dark past and of the violent regime change nearly 40 years ago, which led to a massive genocide of an estimated 1.7 million people and of the millions of landmines left over from the war. Landmines still plague Cambodia today, and the OlFactory Shop supports numerous social causes in Cambodia, where Micki's goal is to improve living conditions in the country through financial contribution. It was a great episode as we talked about digital strategies for building a business online, the OlFactory's social cause of helping landmine removal in Cambodia, good business books, and a lot more. Also, if you have a moment and you can leave a positive review of the Rose Bros podcast on Apple Podcast, it would be much appreciated, as that goes a long way to helping support the show. Enjoy. Micki, welcome to the Rose Bros podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for taking the time. How are you doing these days with everything that's been going on?
I'm doing really well, and I'm practicing not feeling guilty saying that because I do see that a lot of people are struggling, but I feel really lucky that my introversion has really come out in all of this, so it's really getting me through. I love being at home, and it's really nice having my partner at home too. We're enjoying working together, having lunch together. I always work from home, so it hasn't been a huge adjustment for me in that sense. And it's kind of not having to say no to all these social plans that normally I really have to balance carefully has been kind of a load off my shoulders. It's been a lot less stress in that sense because all my friends are in the same boat. So,
absolutely. For people listening, you are the owner of the OlFactory Shop. Can you explain to people what that is?
For sure. So the OlFactory Shop is where I make natural fragrance for the home and body. And it's something that I started, I guess 5 years ago. I was kind of moonlighting it while I was working my other jobs in tech. And it just hit a point where I was thinking about it more than I was thinking about my 9-to-5 job. And I just really wanted to see where I could take it. And I was starting to feel like I was hitting a plateau with the OlFactory Shop in my other job, where I felt like I had taken it as far as I could take it while I had my 9-to-5 going on. So I was kind of at this junction of, do I quit the OlFactory Shop and wrap it up and say that was fun? Or do I leave my job and really go head on in the OlFactory Shop? It just kind of hit a point in my work life where it was scarier for me to stay in my job than it was to jump all into entrepreneurship. So it really wasn't even a choice that I felt like I had to make. It was kind of decided for me. My gut told me, like, you need to do this. You'll be so unhappy if you don't do it. So I jumped in full time in 2018 and haven't looked back, and there's no plan B. And I'm just so thankful for all of that.
What kind of products does the OlFactory Shop produce and sell?
I create a line of essential oils, blended essential oils, natural room and body sprays, about to launch a line of candles, and then I do natural skincare. So face oil, beard oil, and about to launch a pre-shave oil as well.
And I've read it's a company with a social cause. You support initiatives in Cambodia. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So it's always been important to me. I've worked in a lot of nonprofits in that sector as well. And so it's always been important to me to find ways to do good. When my husband and I were on our honeymoon in 2018, we went to Cambodia. And I knew nothing about the country before I went there. I don't remember learning about it in history class or anything here in Canada. So when I got there and I started to learn about their really recent genocide, less than 50 years ago, I was just completely floored. How many lives were lost, how many landmines were planted. But also living in dichotomy with that was a really colorful, beautiful, friendly, smiling people culture. Mm-hmm. And the arts were so stunning and detailed and intricate. So it was all these things kind of swirling in my head, like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? How did we not know about it? Mm-hmm. What can we do? Because this whole country is still dealing with mass amounts of PTSD. They still have millions of landmines, active landmines or undetonated ordnance still left in the ground from hundreds of years of civil wars and other wars. Yeah. And I started to learn about local grassroots initiatives that were being run by some former child soldiers during the genocide who had actually been forced to plant a lot of the landmines. Mm-hmm. And they were on a mission to clear as many as they could. Just because it's such a huge problem there. You can imagine if you step on a landmine and you're injured or become an amputee, not only is there the physical and health aspects that come with that, you're also ostracized from society because you're no longer a contributing member to your family. You're seen as a burden. So if you've ever been to Cambodia and you walk down the street, you do see people who have been injured from landmines or other ordnance sitting on the street and they're begging and they're just in really dire situations. Whereas normally Southeast Asian cultures are very familial and they take care of their family members. They participate in multi-generational living situations and things like that. But really, once you become injured there from a landmine, you're just totally ostracized.
No social safety net there.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking for an organization where money would benefit because I'd known from working in nonprofits that money is not always the greatest need and it's not always the most helpful thing to contribute. But we had a lot of meetings, a lot of Zoom meetings, and they ultimately said, yes, definitely the funds, especially international funds, go so far in Cambodia that's what they would prefer. And really, that's the only way that I felt like I could help out from here, other than I try to spread a lot of awareness through my product for what they're working toward and try to just rally money because that's what they're asking for. And they do so much great work. They provide really good annual reports to say how many landmines that they've deactivated and detonated and how many lives they've potentially saved and injuries. And
what's the name of the organization you ended up choosing?
The Cambodia Self-Help Demining Team.
Okay. And the idea is a small financial contribution monthly, yearly to help out with various initiatives?
Yeah, exactly.
One problem companies face when they're trying to engage in social problems is accountability. Mm-hmm. For example, with Rose, people ask, how do we know you're actually sending the money to plant trees? How does the OlFactory Shop prove to consumers that you are actually following through on what you're doing?
Oh, that's really cool. No one has actually ever questioned me on it, but I think that's a good point that I could be sharing the annual reports that I get as a donor on the website. And if people have ideas on what type of transparency they'd like to see, I'd be happy to provide that. Maybe even getting the organization, recording some videos with them about how we've partnered would be really helpful. They are super busy and I don't get them on the phone all the time.
Right.
But I think that would be something cool just to show everyone the faces who are actually doing the really hard work.
And the reverse is also true. The accountability from your end, knowing that the money you send over there is actually going towards a good cause. How do you make sure that they're actually spending the money correctly?
When we were in Cambodia, I saw the foundation, I saw the work they were doing and connected with them then. So I feel like because I've had that in-person connection with them, I was able to learn from them about all the activities that they provide, all the different areas that they focus on, getting Cambodia off its feet and thriving again.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really comfortable with them. There's just an amount of trust that's built when you're in person. I've seen them do the work. They post videos too of them deactivating landmines,
Right.
and going into rural areas and showing people how to look for landmines and watch out for landmines and what to do. So I feel like they have that transparency too that makes me feel like it's the right thing.
Getting back to when you were younger, did you always want to be an entrepreneur? Have you always had businesses along the way?
I think I have always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I mean, it was kind of typical. I did the lemonade stands and things like that with my siblings, but my parents were farmers. So I think I've just always been around unconventional work in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're definitely an entrepreneur when you're a farmer.
Absolutely.
And so I think just being influenced by my parents being their own bosses for so much of their lives did have a big role to play in this, because you create what you imagine, and it's hard to imagine things that you don't know exist. So I didn't grow up with my parents going to the office at 9 a.m. and coming back at 5 a.m. It was like my dad was gone by 6 a.m. and he stayed in the field until the work was done, and then we were off on the tractors with him.
Always in the family. Did you start OlFactory Shop right out of school? Was there a transition out of high school, out of college? How did that go?
Yeah, so out of university, I studied natural resource management, so basically environmental sciences from an agricultural lens. So I've always been interested in kind of the natural side of things. But after university, I kind of had it in my mind that I had to like get these really good jobs and do that work. So I had dream job after dream job, and it would always hit a point where I just was totally unsatisfied with the work that I was doing, and I felt like I could be doing so much more. And just those little blocks started to speak to me and say, like, okay, this really doesn't seem to be working for you. Like, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
But I kept trying to fit myself into this mold, because it is scary to think about, like, how am I going to drum up business for myself? How am I going to pay myself? How am I going to feed myself? And my husband's an entrepreneur too, so in the early days of his entrepreneurship journey, it was kind of like there's so many unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
In my last role, I was working for a tech company here in Calgary, and I had been working there for a few years, and it just hit a point where I was becoming really miserable in the work that I was doing. It kind of culminated in a health issue, and I was knocked off my feet really suddenly, it seemed to me.
Mm-hmm.
About an 18-month journey later, I was diagnosed with a rare form of arthritis in my spine.
Wow.
And yeah, it was just totally unexpected. I've been pretty, relatively active, advanced a lot of my life and did a lot of yoga, relatively healthy diet-wise. And it totally just caught me out of left field. And now that I've had time to really reflect on those years of my life, I just really feel like it was my soul kind of telling me, like, hey, you're pushing yourself so hard. You are forcing yourself so hard into this box that you don't fit.
Yeah.
So make a change. And it literally just knocked me off my feet and made me change.
Do you think it was stress related?
Yeah, I do. I think a lot of it was stress related. And also a lot of it was me trying to fit into a type A mold that I'm not naturally. So we're kind of raised as kids. I think this is pretty common for most people. We're raised as kids. It's like, you did good at math. You're doing good. You're a good kid. You get rewarded for your performance in certain things. So type A qualities are really pushed on us. Yeah. So I always felt like, I'm in tech. I'm doing work that a lot of people want to do. Tech is cool. Sounds cool anyways. So I should be really grateful. And it just wasn't a job that was playing to my strengths. I'm a lot more of a creative person than I was letting myself be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's just so many of those, these push-pull things going on inside my body. And now I'm at a place where I'm really grateful for everything that has happened. the illness because it's really made me look at my health from a whole new lens and my life from a whole new lens.
Kind of holistically, including work and exercise and diet, I would imagine.
Yeah.
What was the motivation to start the OlFactory Shop? Did you have a frustration or was it just a passion?
It was a passion, yeah. I was always tinkering and making my own things, like always natural things, even in our little apartment living room. And then one day my husband was like, you always want to start a business. Why don't you make this your business? I mean, you're already doing it. You just never ask anyone for money.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally just looked at him and I was like, okay. I thought it was a great idea. So that day I Googled, like, how do I order bottles? How do I get labels made? That's when I discovered things like Fiverr. So I got my logo made on Fiverr for $25.
Yeah.
I discovered Shopify. So I didn't have to be a developer to start a website. In those first few days of researching how to start a business, I actually stumbled upon something called design thinking. There were some webinars out of Stanford about how to apply design thinking to a human life. So I took these 3 webinars on YouTube, learned how to prototype within my life, and that totally just changed everything. It showed me how I can try new things without worrying about it being perfect or worrying about failure. It taught me that failure is a good thing because you learn from it. And it taught me to just go after whatever I can possibly imagine to go after.
Very cool. So the products that you ended up settling on, natural ingredients, how did you settle on the products you ended up picking?
When I was first starting it, it was before I knew of any illness or anything like that. But I studied environmental science, and then I had been working in urban agriculture and things like that for a while, and that had been my interest and my passion. So I knew that whatever I did had to be either environmentally friendly in some capacity or all natural for the body. And something that has always bothered me since a kid is I've always hated synthetic perfumes. They just really irritate me. And I know a lot of people have this sensitivity. So I was like, well, I can make fun products that smell really good that are for people who don't like synthetic fragrance. And that's literally all that I wanted to do. I just wanted to provide a completely all-natural fragrance product for people who couldn't handle synthetics.
And was your strategy brick and mortar, online, both?
Online, I think through doing design thinking exercises and prototyping which way I should start and test, online was the clear answer. So I started my Shopify store. I started pushing out to my personal network on Facebook, on Instagram. I started an email list just with my personal connections.
Yeah.
That was honestly, that I would give that advice to anyone. Start with your personal network because you're going to have friends who are comfortable giving you feedback. You're like, hey, have you thought of this? Mm-hmm. You're going to have people who are just like rooting for you no matter what. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Moms are always just like, whatever you're doing is great.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice to have that too. And then my first venture outside of e-commerce was signing up for markets.
Right.
So in Calgary, there's really great markets. There's Market Collective, there's Etsy markets, there's Little Modern markets, things like that. So I started to get involved in the market community, and that was really cool. It was as close as I'll probably get to brick and mortar, but I loved it because the instant feedback from customers, you're interacting with people as they're interacting with something that you made, which is a really cool feeling. Like, I'm sure you guys get that feeling when people test your coffee and then you get to see their reactions. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Yeah. It could go both ways.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you don't have trouble getting gifts on Mother's Day or for the females in your family.
No, I really enjoy putting gift baskets together from my product. And I carry a couple of products that I don't make that are from other local artisans. So specifically for that reason, it's totally selfish so that I can make the best gift boxes for my family members. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun.
Have you expanded online, Amazon, anything like that?
I've dabbled in Amazon, and then last year I decided to switch my business model to wholesale instead of direct to consumer.
Okay.
Because I figured I really like building relationships and a one-to-one relationship with a shop owner seemed really cool to me. And I still do think it is cool.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of ironically, switched all to wholesale. That's where all of my focus was going. I wasn't focused on sending out customer newsletters as much. I was focused on sales to brick and mortar.
Okay.
And then COVID-19 happened.
Yeah.
And I realized, okay, got to go back to direct to consumer. So that was my pivot. A lot of companies have had to pivot during this, and that was mine. And it was actually something that I've been asking for, because since switching to wholesale last year, I've kind of been missing the direct to consumer experience, which was a good thing to learn. It was a good thing to test and prototype, because I saw, like, actually I do like direct to consumer route better.
Mm-hmm.
It is, I would say it definitely is harder, because then you're bringing in a whole new suite of skill sets. Like, you have to learn paid ads. You have to learn, just like your marketing game has to be so different when you're direct to consumer for e-commerce. But these are things that I've been kind of craving the challenge of. So I'm glad that it kind of like landed on my plate and was like, okay, you need to do this now. And so having dabbled in Amazon prior to this, I'm kind of starting to bring it back in now. Amazon has a handmade platform that's, I believe, trying to compete with Etsy. So I'm on Amazon Handmade, and yeah, I do plan to keep learning my Amazon skills and growing on that side of things as well.
How did you learn the digital media strategy for the OlFactory? Trial and error, on your own, pay-per-click, all that sort of stuff? Was it at home?
At home. I have tried to do a bunch of free e-commerce learnings from it.
Yep.
So Shopify Academy produces some free learning. So I did both of their Facebook ads courses. They weren't really applicable to my business, which I learned afterward when I actually understood what I was doing. I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense for my business. But it's been trial and error. And then my husband has had to do Facebook ads previously. So he's like very good at synthesizing technology.
For people listening, your husband was one of the co-founders of Skip the Dishes.
Yeah.
So quite a bit of technical knowledge, just so people know.
Yeah. So I feel lucky. We don't always, our dinner talk isn't always just technical stuff, but I do feel really lucky that I kind of have this in-house resource where I can be like, hey, do you mind just looking at this and making sure that I'm on the right path? And I can tell him, like, this is my goal. Is this going to get me there? Just because, like I mentioned before, I'm actually really not a type A person, and I'm trying to break out of that mold more and just embrace my natural skills and strengths and embody those more. So I'm happy to say, like, I did not understand Facebook ads when I first started dabbling in them. And it took me a lot. And I would say even to this day, like, I'm 2 months in, I'm still like tweaking every other day and learning something all the time.
As you pivot towards a more direct consumer strategy, have you had to put a lot of money into online advertising? Is it a big part of your budget for the company?
Yeah, I've really had to piece out a part of the budget for that. I didn't even have a spot for it in the budget before, because my marketing was email marketing, which was easy to do for free. And now I've been working out chunks of the budget to pull from. The budget part has changed, because now I can't just roll out a new product whenever it's ready. I kind of have to wait, make sure that it falls in line with marketing, because every new product is also going to increase the marketing budget there. So it's being a little bit more intentional with timelines, which is a good challenge for me.
Yep.
I'm used to winging it and just putting everything out as soon as it's ready. So it's been a good growing process.
Which of the major digital platforms you've had the most success with so far?
So oddly enough, I get the most traction out of Google. Yeah. And I don't have any Google ads yet. It's all just SEO. Just having analyzed all of that recently, I've seen that it's mostly from word of mouth. So people are trying to type in OlFactory Shop. It's hilarious how many misspellings there are for my company name.
Yep.
So that's been entertaining. And then just taking that, I've also spent some time with an SEO expert on how I can improve how people find me on Google, because that still is my number one search platform. Facebook ads is starting to come up. Now that I'm getting it figured out, Facebook ads is getting closer to that, and I expect that it will surpass it.
I mean, there's so much to learn, and you're spending money at the same time. So it's kind of a tough challenge between experimenting and blowing your budget.
Yeah, exactly.
Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat, any of those?
Pretty simple on the tech side. So I do Facebook and Instagram, mostly because they're kind of in bed now.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm not on Twitter. I never got into Twitter. Snapchat, no. I have thought about getting onto TikTok, but honestly, like for my mental health, this is something that if I had an employee, I would be like, hey, run wild on all the platforms. Like if MySpace is still around, hit that up. I don't know.
Well, the idea is that you may not agree with everything on TikTok or Twitter or whatever, but the people's attention in this society and day and age is there. Billions of people on every single one of those platforms. And so how else do you get in front of people for that cost? It offers a lot of businesses opportunity. Whether
Are you guys on TikTok?
Yeah, we've done a few TikTok videos.
Nice. I'll have to look it up.
Do I like it? No. I think TikTok is, a lot of the content on that platform is questionable, but at the same time, how else do you get in front of millions of people potentially overnight?
Yeah, gotta do what you gotta do.
The OlFactory, the name, where did that come from?
That came from a brainstorm. Anyone who has had dinner at my house with Andrew and I knows we're big fans of brainstorming.
Okay.
So whenever someone's like, hey, I have this problem, we're like busting out a pad of paper. We're just brain dumping all the ideas we could think of for it. So him and I were just doing that in our apartment living room a few years ago. And we're kind of thinking of things. I have a science background, so I was kind of interested in things like that. I wanted to feel gender neutral, a little bit industrial, kind of simple. And then we started thinking about the system and the sense of smell, where it comes from, and then olfactory was one of the words on the list. So we went with it.
Manufacturing wise, as you've grown, maybe you do still do it in your basement, but it gets challenging as you grow. Have you had problems scaling up? How have you dealt with that?
Yes, I've had to invest in private labeling for a number of my products. So the first thing when I private labeled were the small essential oils, just because capping them, pouring into small bottles is very hard. There's a lot of spillage that can happen. And then capping the bottles is really tough. These caps go on really hard. And as I mentioned, I now know that I have a type of arthritis. So that form of inflammation going on in the body. And it was just taking such a toll on my joints.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing. And that was one of my first goals that I set out. I was like, you know what? I want to get busy enough that I cannot do this myself anymore. And I need to private label. So I was really happy when that point came. Even though it was an added expense, I was happy to pay that expense because it meant so much of where I'd come from to where I was going. And then also just freed up so much of my time that I could do things like start email marketing, invest my time learning how to improve my website myself. And it gave me so much freedom. I still make the sprays and the skincare and the perfumes myself. I have a friend who's a phenomenal candle maker who makes my new line of candles, which has been really cool because now I get to see how my business contributes to other businesses as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a side of it that I never thought, just didn't really know about before I started becoming an entrepreneur.
Inspirations? Did you have any business inspirations growing up or now? People you look to?
I'd say there's so many. Whenever I see, I call them quiet leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So people, one of my friends is one of my business inspirations. Her name is Kylie Woods, and she's the founder of Chic Tea.
Okay.
And it's a community for women who are interested in technology, either advancing their careers in technology or transitioning into technology. They do workshops, they do networking, kind of appeals to women and introverts. She is someone I would call a quiet leader. And so she's not like the most boisterous person in the room. She listens really intensely. She's very thoughtful. She has a very talented way of providing very good feedback without making anyone feel criticized. And she has a really great skill of pulling out the strengths in other people and putting them together. So like really using your toolbox. And I've learned so much just from being friends with her and spending time with her. So she definitely like inspires me to be my authentic self. Even though I don't have employees, I still have to be a leader in other ways for my business. So that's something that drives me. I'm also really inspired by Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if anyone has watched any of the documentaries or even like the new Tom Hanks movie about him. But it sounds ridiculous, I know, but I have to put it out there because I think it will catch some people's or perk some people's ears up hearing that. But he is one of the most inspirational people that I've ever learned about. And then also I've been watching The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan series on Netflix. Yeah. Oh my God. So now every day I'm like,
yeah,
be a little bit more like Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah. Attempt, right? I think I've watched all those twice now.
So good,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How about books? Do you read any business books? Any readings that you've fallen towards throughout life?
Yeah, I love reading. A book that I've been reading in the mornings lately is a classic called Think and Grow Rich. And for anyone who hasn't read it, it's not just about money. It's really it's quite spiritual, and it's more about mindset, growth mindset.
That's Napoleon Hill, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
It was written in like the early 1900s, but it's crazy how relevant everything he's talking about still is. Other books that I've loved, Traction, which is one that I wish I would have read earlier on in my entrepreneurial journey because it lays out a foundation for structure. So I don't know if anyone out there is just thinking about starting a business, read this book and set up some frameworks for yourself on how to run your day and run your company. So for example, one of the things I learned from this book is to do a weekly meeting. Normally it's with like the C-suite, your C-suite team. Mm-hmm. Since I am my C-suite team, I have my meetings with myself, but I go through their scorecard where I can rate my previous week for revenue for other targets that I have. And then I just make sure that I'm on track for my quarterly and my annual goals, whatever those may be. So that's been a really helpful thing that I've implemented this year.
Who's that by?
That book is called Traction, and the author is...
I can look it up here while we're talking. Get a Grip on Your Business, Gino Wickman?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, interesting. How about fiction? Are you a fiction reader?
I am a fiction reader. Some of my favorite books are The Alchemist,
okay,
The 40 Rules of Love, and then there's a fantasy sci-fi series called Wildwood that I really love.
Any other business books that you've read?
I'm really attracted to business books that focus on growth mindset, so Think and Grow Rich. And then Jen Sincero has an amazing book called You Are a Badass at Making Money. And it's really similar concepts to Think and Grow Rich, but just a little bit more modern. And I just love anything that's kind of gets rid of any stories that you tell yourself about blocks that you have or things that you can't do and are just focusing on unlimited potential that you have. That just really revs me up. That's what gets me up in the mornings because I truly believe that I can create the day that I want to see. And that mindset has such an impact over anything else. So I tend to read books like that. I'm starting to get interested in storytelling marketing. So there is a good book on my docket called The Power of Moments, I believe, sitting on my desk downstairs. So that will be my next one, just about how to elevate everyday moments and make them really memorable for people.
Podcasts? Any good business podcasts?
I like...
Other than the Rose Bros podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Number one, there's a really good podcast called Skimmed from the Couch, and it's by the founders of The Skimm. My absolute favorite episode is when they interviewed Martha Stewart.
Okay.
Because I just love when these unexpected people are like, true badasses in how they've done things and when they're not afraid to do things completely differently from the norm. So yeah, Skimmed from the Couch is one of my favorites. I listen to Rise podcast with Rachel Hollis a fair amount. I had been binging on Tony Robbins until I went and saw him live in Calgary, and now I've kind of like fallen off the Tony Robbins train a little bit.
Really?
No fault of his. I think I just got what I needed from it, and now I'm going to try to listen to podcasts that are fun too, and try to remember that I'm also a human that enjoys listening to music just because. So I got to make time for music.
Having fun.
Yeah.
How about tough times? Have you experienced downs in the business where you've had to reevaluate, or has there been struggles?
Yeah, definitely. I think something that keeps coming up for me recently is being the only person. So I've hit something that I am calling decision fatigue. I think that's a real term, actually.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have faced this, but it's just when you are the only person in the business, every little thing becomes your responsibility. So even small things that don't seem ginormous, that don't seem like they're leading to revenue, but they still need to get taken care of, you need to take care of that. So that's a big responsibility of it that seems to build more and more as time goes on. So that is something that's come up a few times in the past year, especially for me, where it's like I sometimes don't feel like I have capacity to make that little decision, but no one else is going to, so I have to find the time to do it. But the flip side of that is that I chose this, and that I said in being an entrepreneur that I wasn't going to be sure of all the challenges that are going to come my way, that I was open to them. So just finding ways to get around that. And my way of getting around that is relying on a board of directors kind of. So I have two mastermind groups, one that I started and one that I joined. And anytime something is just taking more time than it needs to be, I just need to bounce it off of them and ask for help. And I'm really good now. One thing that maybe across an illness has taught me is to just ask for help as soon as you need it. Don't stumble. You can trust yourself that you will do what's in your power to find the answer, but then when it hits a point where you just need help, just ask for help. And I think that's been a good lesson to learn.
You can't work all the time. You and your husband need some time to relax and have fun. What do you guys do? What are your strategies on dealing with stress, and how do you like to enjoy yourself?
I love to go for walks with my dog.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a really walkable neighborhood of Calgary. So every day we get out with our dog Lily, get some sunshine in. I love reading to de-stress. So like I'll reward myself throughout the day if I felt like to celebrate a little win, or even if things aren't going the way that I thought they would that day, just take a little time out, do some reading. I love to journal and to write.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a creative outlet for me. Cooking and doing things like making my own sprouts or making kimchi, things like that.
Sports, hiking, winter sports.
Love to hike. We don't get out very much, but these are goals that we have.
Okay.
Especially being in quarantine too, just spending more time together. If you have time to be like, okay, well, when parks open up and when it's safe to do so, we're not going to take advantage of we're not going to take for granted how close we are to the mountains anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Even the hikes within the city are amazing. Rose Hill Park. I love yoga, and recently getting into HIIT. Just since the gyms are closed and you got to get some cardio and some strength in too, HIIT has been a savior because you don't need equipment, but you get a good workout.
With COVID impacting businesses everywhere, have you had to adopt certain strategies to keep the business going financially, product-wise, distribution-wise?
Yeah, a lot of things. So since all my wholesalers, except one, I got into Blush Lane, which is a local grocery store here, in February, right before COVID hit. And thank God, because grocery stores stayed open, right? So I felt like that was such a blessing. And they were really busy, and they're still really busy with grocery stores being the only thing open pretty much. But all my other wholesalers had to close because they're in malls or they're non-essential. So that was like a pretty instant tap that gets turned off, right? So that's what drove me to go back to direct to consumer. And then shortly after that, my supplier closed for a few weeks due to a loss in the family, and then due to COVID, now they're closing for a while longer. But people are ordering online. So it's kind of like my supplies have stopped coming, but people are still ordering. I need to fulfill these direct orders. So that's been another good challenge for me to take on in the midst of this. And it's pushing me to look for more local suppliers, because right now my supplier, they're phenomenal. They're based out of Ontario, and it's kind of been something that's weighing on my mind. I've been wanting to work with some of the more local suppliers, but just taking my time to make sure that the quality is where the OlFactory because I really focus on high quality organic as much as possible and things like that.
Starting the business, you own it 100%. I'm guessing. Did you take equity partners? Was it all you?
All me. I just bootstrapped it myself. I've always been a really good saver. So I kind of grew as I could. So I started buying small
That's
amounts
awesome.
of supplies, selling in, and then as I had more money, just ramping up from there. And now I have closets worth of, of supply that gets cycled through a lot faster than it did in the early days. So that's a fun part of it. But yeah, it's just still all me financially and everything. I think there are a lot of uses for me to take on equity from investors. Like I would definitely hire employees, marketing, sales, things like that. But I'm also really enjoying learning all of these bits myself first and taking on as much of that as I can for as long as I can, I guess.
Is your vision for the OlFactory Shop to grow large or stay small?
Since adopting like such a growth mindset, I would love to just see all across the country just like a staple for people who are looking for natural fragrance or who are adding rituals to their lives. I'm a big fan of morning routines, and I think that essential oils and candles and these things can have such an impact on that aspect of our life. So I would love to be a quality provider for people who are looking for this, because I have felt as a consumer, there's been so many companies who start out really well, all natural, and then they hit a point where they switch and go from all natural just because it is more expensive. But by keeping costs and overhead low, I really plan to be able to grow and keep true to these values that I've set out for the company. And I want to help people. People are buying natural products with the intention of keeping their homes and their family members as healthy as possible, right? And that's like a responsibility that I take to heart, especially given my health journey. I understand how important that is. So I want to be that company that can provide these wholesome products for people.
So what's next then on the journey to growth? What's next for the plans for the OlFactory Shop?
I think nailing Facebook ads would be really great.
Okay.
Because that will get me, I do think that that's what's going to get me to the next stage of growth, where I'm just reaching a lot more consumers. And then being able to provide other things like being able to cut the cost of shipping a little bit more and things like that. And then growing, like you mentioned, bringing Amazon in a bit more in the future, just because that is how people like to shop right now. So I think using Amazon to grow is part of the plan as well.
There are a lot of companies that started out as online only and have grown. I think Allbirds, they started Cotopaxi, they're out of the States. So there's a few that, have managed to start online 100%.
Yeah, it's an ideal method, I think, if you can figure out marketing really quick and get everything you need behind that. It's funny, I don't know if you guys found this. I found for me, marketing is one of the last things that I thought about, but the first thing that I should have been investing in.
Right. It's kind of tough because it's money out the door with not necessarily an ROI immediately.
Yeah.
Have you found it's returned itself, your spend on advertising?
Yes, I would say that my spend on Facebook is still too low, though.
Okay. I'm
kind of interested in what if I just did a scary thing and put like a couple grand behind it a month? Because right now I'm sitting at like maybe a couple $100 a month. So that's easy enough to recover. But yeah, I'm kind of thinking I need to be a little bit more bold, put like some really good spend behind it and see if that can amplify things.
Be an interesting experiment. I mean, even I've noticed when you set up ads on something like Instagram, you can toggle the spend on a daily basis and they'll show you the impressions you can get based on, $100 a day.
Yeah.
Jumps up to tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty impressive. How did you guys learn paid ads?
Well, I wouldn't say we've learned them at all. It's trial and error, but if you plan to grow, obviously you can't stick with that strategy forever. So I'd be interested to learn about some of the courses that you've taken.
Yeah.
So
for sure. I'll send you some links. They might be more relevant for you. I don't know if your website has pretty high traffic. I found like the course that I took was targeting websites that already had a good amount of traffic, whereas I'm kind of in this weird mix where I have like a good amount of local traffic, but the awareness piece needs to expand beyond word of mouth for me yet.
Right.
So that's the thing. I don't think people realize how tough it is when you start a website to like get eyeballs on it. It's really hard outside of your personal network.
Have you experimented with influencer marketers or anything like that?
I have a little bit. So I've just really, I would call it some pretty grassroots initiatives. I've like reached out to YouTubers. I have a product called Boxing Blend, and it's a spray that a lot of my friends use in their boxing gloves. So I shipped a bottle to a boxer in the States, and about a year later, I guess he posted a video about it and was like, use this stuff, it's awesome. And I started getting all these orders out of California. So I just messaged one of the customers and was like, hey, just curious, how did you find out about me? I'm getting all these orders from your area. And he just sent me a link to this guy's video, and I was like, oh, he did it 1 year later.
Awesome.
So it was pretty cool. And that was my first kind of success with giveaways. For example, I don't know if you guys participate in giveaways. I've never gotten repeat orders from giveaway winners or anything like that. I guess the big picture of that is getting new followers on Instagram. So that one influencer, the boxer, was kind of a success for me. And I am curious to do it, but there's a part of me that also is like, I feel a little bit inauthentic. As in, I just want to make sure that it's the right influencer. What about for you guys?
I grew up playing sports and ski racing and whatnot. So a lot of my friends, some of them stuck with it, and they've got tons of followers on Instagram and whatnot. So we've been able to kind of leverage that a bit with giving out coffee and stuff. So that helps, I think.
Yeah.
You never really know.
Yeah, you don't know. It's so hard to keep tabs on all of these things.
Unless you get someone like a Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, or that would obviously be different.
Yeah.
It's also fun to stay involved with people that are out there doing cool things. And if they're giving the odd shout out to your product, it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of cool to see your name out there and kind of doing its own thing.
Shipping. How have you dealt with shipping online? That's one of the main things Rose Bros has to deal with.
I was just going to ask you about that with being on Amazon. So shipping sucks for any like product-based business. I mostly use Canada Post Small Business through Shopify. I'm not sure if your website is through Shopify or Squarespace.
Yep.
Yeah, so I use it through Shopify, and it is really, it's something that I struggle with every year when I'm doing my annual planning. Do I increase the cost of my products to account for free shipping, or do I still subsidize? So right now, I've tried a few things so far. So the first 2 years of running my business, I had a tiered shipping model. So it was something like $0 to $50 was $5 shipping. $50 to $100 was $10 shipping. And then one day I got an email from a customer saying, oh, I'm going to add one more product to my basket, but it's going to just switch me over the threshold, so I'm going to double my shipping. Is there any way I could still get $5 shipping? And then I realized, oh my God, I'm punishing people for having a higher spend.
Right.
So then I did some research on what numbers you should be using. And then I decided to go to flat rate shipping for all purchases of $7. So that has been good. I haven't gotten any negative feedback of, hey, do you have any free shipping codes? Because, you will get customers ask you for things like discount codes, and people will be honest and ask for something that they want. And I haven't had any of that feedback with the $7 flat rate shipping. And I always just pitch it as like, it's a really low shipping fee, and I keep my costs really reasonable because we share the shipping. I don't know the answer.
I read that Shopify is building a fulfillment network. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they've sent out some preliminary emails about it, just saying what's in the future. So I'm excited for that because Shopify has so much potential to actually compete with Amazon, I think. And it's so cool. It's a Canadian-grown business, and I'm a Toby fan, so I'm happy to see Shopify keep growing and
I saw they were actually the most valuable company on the markets last week at one point.
Wasn't that crazy? Yeah, like last Wednesday or something.
Oh,
it's
that's
so exciting.
Hard to believe.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wrap up here. Maybe leave listeners with advice. If you were to give advice to a young entrepreneur, someone starting out, what would you tell them?
Just do it. Don't overthink things. Just grab something and try it. And it doesn't have to be your forever thing. Just if you have an idea, give it a go. Any
advice on following passions and listening to your gut?
Definitely do that.
Yeah.
If you are an intuitive person, it's a lot easier to like hear when your gut is yes, that's a yes, or no, don't do that. If you're not an intuitive person, I think it just comes through trial and error. So kind of don't be afraid of trying new things. Don't be afraid of listening to what really makes you happy. That's how I've discovered my passions. Is I would go for a hike and be like, oh my God, I had a smile on that whole time. So yes, more hiking, please. I think there's so much. Maybe Instagram culture has fed this too, but a lot of my friends have had really great ideas, but they hold themselves back because they're waiting on something. They're waiting to be a really good graphic designer so that they can make their own logo, or they're waiting to understand a different code language so that they can make their website a certain way. Just find ways to get things done. I'm a fan of done, not perfect. So even though I hold my products to a really high quality standard and like my small batching process is tight run ship, I get things that maybe aren't as impactful to the customer. So if a label didn't turn out as perfect as I wanted it, I'm not going to hold back releasing something or spend all of the rest of my money getting these labels fixed till they're perfect before I release it. I'm a big fan of like get it out there, learn what you can from that product, and reiterate and improve constantly. I think that's my advice. Just keep trying, keep going, keep taking steps.
Very cool. Any major announcements coming up for the OlFactory Shop that people should be aware of?
Yeah, I don't know when this podcast will be out, but I have a super cool local collaboration going on. 2 local brands for Father's Day. So check out the Father's Day box. It's on my website. It's fully customizable, so you get to choose everything for any dad that you're buying for, your dog dad, your first-timer dad, your old-timer dad, whoever.
Awesome. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks so much for having me, Trevor. This was super cool.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you liked what you heard, head over to rosebros.ca where we will have upcoming episodes. You can also find our coffee and chocolate there, where we plant one tree for every bag or bar sold through our partnership with One Tree Planted, a non-for-profit organization focused on global reforestation. Otherwise, until next time, happy coffee drinking.